blood is thicker than water. This means that you put your family first and your friends second, right? What if the original quote was, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb," which instead means that it's the bonds we choose that are more important than the circumstances of our birth. But what if that interpretation is also potentially made-up clickbait? How do you figure out what is real? And what if the version that we use isn't the same as the original and the way that we use it today? Does that make it more or less valid? Hey there, I'm Permanent DM. I'm the creator of the game All Mice Die, and today we'll talk about what it means to have a low signal fidelity game. Low signal fidelity means there's a lot of ambiguity, uncertainty, or noise around a data point. It's your radio station filled with the static that makes the broadcast hard to understand, or the slow Wi-Fi causing your video to blur, stutter, and lag. But it is also the impressionists giving the vague idea of a tree full of leaves instead of going into exhaustive detail on each leaf. In gaming, it isn't good or bad, but it is a stylistic choice, and if you want to use it in your games, it's best to get solid player buy-in. Let them know, I want to play around with people giving realistic explanations from a wide variety of perspectives, so make sure you're always thinking of the source of your information. Some players might prefer a simpler, more clear-cut story. Good guy good, bad guy bad, smite evil, champion good, carry on. Both are fine, as long as both understand the other person stands in that spot and doesn't come wanting something different. They don't want clear-cut answers, and they get unreliable narrators, or vice versa. Every narrator is, in some way, unreliable to be used as the one of the one true truth in everything that has ever happened. Even in the specific instance of talking to an expert about their field of expertise, and they are trying to tell you the truth, there's going to be some level of miscommunication. Maybe the expert doesn't explain a basic principle because it's so simple to them that they would find it a waste of time to include. Maybe the expert wants to be lauded for their expertise, so they make it more confusing than it needs to be so they can feel more important. Maybe the expert wants to tell them the truth, but there's some ugly bits that they feel they want to protect their audience from because it's uncomfortable to talk about for some reason. It is dangerous for us to focus on people telling the specific narrative truth we want to deliver to the PCs to advance the story, or for us to focus on the character being a lying liar face. It means we lose out on all the varieties of gray in the middle, and it truncates our ability to tell an interesting story. What if, in addition to the objectively true guy who says honest interpretations and the lying McLiar face that includes some other examples? Let's consider the following. A character who is reliable because they lack conversational understanding of the situation. A classic example is the fantasy character that sees the sci-fi thing and just doesn't have the words to describe it. What about a character who is only getting part of the information and gives a conclusion from it? They smelled sulfur, so they report there are demons in the woods. A character who is unreliable because they don't want to believe something. They think their daughter is being speared away by a creature in the night because they don't want to believe that she's sneaking out to visit the boy from across town. There are tons more examples, but they all follow the same basic format. Their perspective is X, so it colors their explanation in Y way. And this is just one level of unreliability from the source material. What happens when you get two steps between the event and the PCs? An evil wizard has made a bargain with the dragon and is terrorizing the countryside. The crown offers reward for information that leads to the wizard's capture. That is what it says on a notice posted outside of the Baron's Keep. A lot of people will focus on how we figure out who the evil wizard is, what the deal is with the dragon, and how it affects the kingdom. And they aren't wrong to do this. But also consider that in a low-fidelity game, how that notice was made and what the motivations and interests are behind it. What if the real story is that a dragon, angered by having its lair disturbed by a natural meteor shower, destroyed a local town? The dragon announced to all that could hear it that it would find the wizard and make them pay. That was seen as a falling out between a dark wizard and a dragon over some imagined bargain. But the PCs go to investigate and encounter a bunch of different, often conflicting perspectives. They hear from a local merchant that the dragon has been asleep up there for ages and has only ever attacked the town once, They're probably back to sleep already, don't worry about it. Someone else says that the king was looking to move settlers into the area and the town was arguing against newcomers in the mountains. The fire that took the town was no dragon, it was agents from the king. Another says that the dragon is a force of nature and that their coming is heralded by a great fire in the sky. Still, someone else says that the dragon was a black dragon for sure. They heard it from their cousin who swears he was there that night. Someone else mentions that there is a wizard in the old tower to the far east of the valley that has always seemed sketchy, so they think it was them. What do the PCs do when they unravel things and get to the truth, finding out it was a big misunderstanding? What if they don't figure it out? Are you okay with them getting to the wrong answers? What if the wizard in the tower to the east is wrongly accused or killed or has his own misgivings and misunderstandings? It can become a really big mess really quickly. Which then raises the most important question here about whether you want to have a low-fidelity game. Are you okay with it being messy? Are we okay with leaving things muddled and complex and stumbling through a world in a haze of half information, making only semi-informed decisions and hoping for the best? At my table, that is the best possible result. For others, that would feel really draining. My goal with this channel is to explain concepts and then to give you some way to act upon them. Typically speaking, I do this by explaining how my game, All My Sty, uses some parts of what we're talking about to best effect. I'm actually not going to do that today. I don't think it's the best way forward. Instead, I'm going to suggest an entirely unrelated game. It's not even a TTRPG to play with your friends, maybe on a night when someone can't make it. The game is called Telephone Pictionary, and you can learn all the rules in a link down below from a couple of minutes. It's a really fun way to brainstorm and get ideas for different things that are going on in your world. If you want to use random stuff, you can, but you can also give your players all the rumors they might hear in a local tavern and start with that as their prompts and see what sort of things come from it when they pass it around the table. By the end of the game, you'll probably be laughing and explaining how the story changed as you went around the table. If you let the players know at the end that this is a representation of how they will get information in the game world, they will clue in on the fact that the GM isn't necessarily tricking them or laying false trails, but is instead trying to represent people complexly and approach the world as living. I think it's fun to share a simple example of this. I gave editor Amber a heads up when I was scripting this video, and we did a test. I made this test a little more complicated because we're only going to go through 2 steps. Normally, these aren't this complex. Here's the prompt. A man holds a jar between his knees. Looking down into the jar, he sees a fairy trapped inside. The jar is a little terrarium filled with leaves and sticks. Here is what editor Amber drew. This is what Mr. Editor said as a description. A head coming out of or looking into a jar. The jar has flowers/creatures in it, and they are saying hello back to the person looking in. It seems to be a glass jar. We are trying to be accurate here, but the forced change of perspective has already twisted some of the things into others. The head is coming out of the jar or looking into it, and nobody's holding anything anymore. The jar has flowers and multiple creatures of them, some of which are talking. What if the mission that they got was to save a fairy who'd been trapped, and this was the description they were given? Could they get to a trapped fairy from the description in the end? Well, maybe, but it's not a straight line. And when they ask the person at the end of the chain of information if the creature inside was a fairy, they can honestly get a, maybe. And it's not the person being intentionally unhelpful. It is someone being an unreliable narrator and digging into the details that can make your game feel so much more rich and fulfilling. As a game master, it also lets you get comfortable with prepping a perspective rather than prepping what they need to get out of a situation to advance to the next part of the plot. You can say your piece, think from the perspective of the character, and not worry about how the players are going to take things unless it conflicts with a very obvious reality of the world. If you have a blue scarf and the players describe it as red, they're not going to make that mistake, so you should correct them. But that's really the goal here, trying to think about things complexly. And if you like what I'm doing here, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you want access to more cool stuff. My Wes Marches game, All My Sty, is launching on Kickstarter soon. So if you want to hear more about that, there's a link in the description down below, and you can keep the conversation going by jumping on my Discord server. Because at the end of the day, Wes Marches is all about community. Until next time, Thanks for watching.